At the 2017 National Community Foundations Forum held at the State Library of Victoria in Melbourne, all community foundations around Australia were asked to consider how they use all their different forms of capital. That is, their social, moral, intellectual, reputational and financial capital, or in short, their SMURF. Community foundations were asked to do a Pecha Kucha presentation, which is a short presentation whereby the presenter uses 20 slides and only 20 seconds per slide. This is our Pecha Kucha presentation on how the Give Where You Live Foundation uses all our forms of capital, or in fact, uses our SMURF. 6.5 years ago, none of these logos or brands existed. We've used all our forms of capital to develop a region-wide collective impact initiative called GROW, a food security strategy called Feed Geelong, increased awareness of our grant making, and a youth in philanthropy program called Engage. 6.5 years ago, we had just one brand, which was that of United Way Geelong Region. It was strong and reliable, well known and reputable, but it was known predominantly for being a fundraiser. Our challenge was how to go from being a fundraiser to a change maker. We determined that a critical part of becoming a change maker was to develop an organisation-wide theory of change. But to develop such a guiding and strategic document, we had to use all our forms of capital. Developing a theory of change is definitely a part of the Give Where You Live Foundation's SMURF story. Our theory of change is our hypothesis of how we can catalyse change. It says that if we undertake core broad activities by carrying out more specific actions, this will result in outcomes over which we have a very clear influence and eventually lead to a broad social impact to which we will contribute. But why do it? Well, it will help us catalyse change. It allows us to increase our impact. Importantly, it will give us greater focus and target the use of our capital, and it will allow us to measure outcomes. That, in turn, will help us catalyse change and improve our impact and focus. To start with, we looked at the change we wanted to create. Our region is a tale of two cities. On one hand, growth and prosperity. On the other, some of the most disadvantaged communities in the state. We knew that despite enormous effort and money and many small grants that have helped many individuals, creating broad systemic change was still like catching smoke. With that in mind, we knew that our broad goal was about equity, increasing equity of opportunity to ensure that all people and all places thrive, not just some. Our goal was to contribute to an increase in social and economic participation that would lead to a decrease in disadvantage. Our core broad activities were more than money in and money out. We're social investors, not just grant makers. Like all investors, we want to stay in the investment and help it achieve its maximum return. Like many community foundations, we sit in a unique place in the community. We're able to convene and connect solutions, and we don't just raise money, we also raise awareness of the issues. Our theory determined that we should focus on 3 key areas into which resources and capital should be directed. Those areas being education, employment and life crisis. It's the gaps in these areas where the system lets people down and where we could make the most difference. Even though we are trying to work in one of the most complex spaces with some of the most complex issues, we've tried, for simplicity, to create a linear equation. Our theory is that if people have adequate learning and education to hold a sustainable and sustaining job, and they're not limited by an inhibiting life crisis, then economic and social participation is increased and disadvantage is reduced. So here is our complete theory of change. To develop it, we asked for feedback from grantees, donors, business partners and life members. We used our reputation while also putting it on the line. We garnered support for the issue of equity and identified how our limited resources needed to be applied carefully. However, our SMURF really gets moving in the implementation of our theory of change. It is the journey we start after we launch our theory of change, where we will need to use every bit of our social, moral, intellectual, reputational and financial capital. In implementing our theory of change, our networks and ability to bring people and organisations together behind common agendas will be crucial. Our ability to lead our community while also listening to the challenges. We're lucky to have the trust of the community, but we will need to use that trust wisely to achieve the ambitious targets we have developed. One of our taglines is addressing disadvantage is everyone's business. We've already started to coalesce people and communities behind this values-driven statement. 70 businesses have signed our Grow Compact, while a further 300 support us in some way. We have in excess of 4,000 workplace givers, all supporting our message. One of the key elements of our theory of change was to develop it using an evidence base. When implementing, we've identified that further research and evidence is required into the gaps in these systems. Already we've started to research food insecurity and will release a second Food for Thought report. To develop our theory of change, we know that we have had to use our reputational capital, but simultaneously we are also putting that reputation on the line. For over 60 years, we have been trusted and respected, and through this transformation that we will undertake through our theory of change, we hope that this trust only strengthens. The financial capital we need to use is more than just the money. Between 1.5 million and 2 million of community grants per annum will always be crucial to our organisation and to the community. But over $1.5 million in leverage funding from government and a further $250,000 from other funders for our programs allows us to implement our theory. Using all our forms of capital, we hope that our message and purpose transforms to be much more than fundraisers and grant makers. Through convening, connecting, building awareness and funds, and social investing, we hope to be known as change makers. We have already consulted all of our major stakeholder groups, with over 200 people being involved in feedback sessions on our theory of change. We asked them to describe our plan and our theory in one word, and here are the words that they came up with. While it has been a long time in the making, and some would say it's been over 60 years in the making, we know that the work that we have done has helped many individuals and organisations. However, broad systemic change is still a challenge, and in so many ways, this is just the beginning of our change-making journey.